So Kyle, we hear all the time that they actually faked the broadcast of going to the moon, and I've heard that it's really easy to fake maybe the 20 seconds that you see on YouTube nowadays using modern technology. But you've been in media, you've been doing video and film for 30 years. What would it take to fake a continual live broadcast for hours of the moon mission?
Yeah, I mean, we see like science fiction movies now, and they're like, creating these amazing environments, but this is the late 1960s. And the simple answer is they just didn't have the technology back then to fake it.
The technology existed in the 1960s to send men to the moon. This might be hard to believe if you weren't alive back then. In fact, the younger you are, the easier it is to believe that the moon landings were faked, because you've grown up in an incredible age of movie special effects. It's easy to believe in a CGI universe. But what would it have taken to fake the footage from the Apollo moon landings? First of all, the 1969 footage was shot and broadcast at 10 frames per second. That's because the technology back then to broadcast live footage from the moon to Earth was very primitive. Because the footage is at 10 frames per second, it looks like it was slowed down. One could shoot at a higher frame rate and play it slower, but using what? Crude tape machines couldn't have done slow motion back then, but a magnetic disc recorder could in 1969. Yet this device only allowed for 30 seconds of video playback, or 90 seconds of slow-mo when played at 10 frames per second. The live feed from the moon was over 2 hours, so there just wasn't enough technology around back then to store such a massive amount of video. Some think the live feed was filmed in a studio using a traditional film camera. But those 143 minutes of footage would equate to huge rolls of film without showing any film grain or splices. If the splices were there, then people would have known the footage to be faked in 1969. It would have also required multiple rolls switched every 10 minutes to be broadcast on television, and this technology didn't exist back then either. Later Apollo missions used a camera that ran at 30 frames per second, so the technology to store and playback moon footage would have required 3 times more storage than in Apollo 11. Yet the technology still didn't exist until a few years after. It would seem like it would just be easier to go to the moon, because this technology did exist back then. Even more, multiple countries aimed antennas at the moon and received the live signal. Why would they lie on our behalf, especially Russia, who we were racing against?